Retreat, retreat, retreat. How many of us need a female retreat? So last weekend, I just came back from a retreat and I wanted to share with you that experience. It was a women's retreat, and a few weeks before I was thinking about having a feminine retreat for all of my girls, and I wanted to experience one before I created that experience for someone else. And wow, what a time of fellowship, what a time of getting close to God, what a time of purification. What I enjoyed about this was that I met many beautiful women across like every spectrum of energy and appearance and background. It was so refreshing to be connected to that. And from that experience, if I could describe it in one word, I felt so feminine. One thing I liked that we did, one of the many things I liked that we did, was that we sung the same songs every time we got together. And while other retreats, I don't know how they do it, if they do different songs or not, I like that they picked a few songs and sung them over and over, because you get an opportunity to get them deep in your heart and to really understand the meaning of them and to worship your Lord behind them. So one of the songs that we sung that I remember the riff or the chorus was that nothing's impossible with God. Nothing's too hard for our God. And what I like about sign language and the fact that I interpreted for 7 years in sign language is it helps me really understand a song, because we sing a song in English and the words are very abstract. But if you were to take those abstract words and try to interpret them for a deaf person, it will force you to think, what is the concrete meaning of this abstract word? When you say that God is so worthy of it all, what does that mean? Worthy of it all. So I started thinking, how would I interpret this lyric to a deaf person so that they understand it, and then it gives me a greater understanding of what it means God is worthy of it all. Some of the things I thought about were his sacrificial life for us. That makes him worthy of our praise, worthy of our lifestyle yielded to him. His goodness to us, how he saves us again and again from all kinds of obstacles. He's worthy to be praised. Another thing I thought about was that he answers our prayers. There's no other God that answers prayers on this earth. Every other God is made with man's hands and concepts, ideas. But our God was not made by us. He was not made. He just existed, the self-existing one. And so he's worthy of our worship just by the definition of who he is, self-existing. No other God can claim that. And that's one of the things I love about his son. There's no other God on earth that people worship that has come from heaven, born of a virgin, died for us, not for himself in his own sin, but died for us, and was raised from the dead, and was seen by many people, and gave us eternal life. There's no other God, person, saint that can give us all of that. And that's why we're not to worship all of these other people or angels, because they cannot give us eternal life, because they are not worthy of it all. Something very interesting happened at this retreat. Marilee, who was the guest speaker at the retreat, told this story that I'm going to retell to you. And the reason I am sharing this story she told is because it relates to what happened to me during the retreat. So the story was this. Marilee had founded an orphanage in one of the countries in Africa. I don't recall which one it was, but she created this orphanage, and she had all of these locals and I think some people from the States as missionaries working there and helping run and maintain this orphanage. One year, Marilee and some of the staff asked what the staff or the workers desired for Christmas. They all unanimously said they wanted goats. And so at first Marilee was taken aback. She's like, you could have anything you want and you want a goat? But in their country, a goat is valuable because producing the milk and the cheese and whatever else comes with having a goat, which I'm totally clueless about but would love to learn. And so they decided to surprise all of the staff members, all of the workers there with goats. So they bought them all these goats, and the day before Christmas, all the goats came in, and one of the young men there that worked the hardest more than anyone else, I don't know the specifics of what he did, but it sounded like from Marilee, he worked extremely hard, more than the rest of the team, and so he wanted his goat right then and there. And they said, no, why don't you wait for Christmas? We're going to be passing out all the goats during Christmas time. Why don't you wait? And he's like, no, I want my goat now. What happened next surprised everyone. While people were sleeping during the night, he took out a can of paint and painted the goat that he wanted red. So you can imagine in the morning, when everyone was awake, they see this bright red goat with paint dripping off of him and everyone else's goat normal. And he said, I want that goat. And he had picked the biggest, strongest, best goat. And that's what he painted. It was kind of sad because they had to pull him aside and tell him that they understood that he worked the hardest, and they expressed to him that they understood and saw his hard work, that they were going to bless him with a special goat, that his goat was actually arriving in the morning in a special truck, and this goat was going to be bigger and stronger and better than any of the goats that they had already brought in. And he missed that opportunity because he painted the one that he saw with his own understanding red. So that story was so significant to me that during that weekend, because one of the beautiful women that I met there and I connected, and we got together and we saw on the prize table all the things that they had prepared to give away as door prizes during the raffle. And there were quite a few of them, but we chose these two special trays that were made from the Calvary Chapel Church. One of the guys affiliated with the church made all of these special trays. And so we got together and we're like, we want those. So we put our hands on it and we laid hands on it and we asked God for it. And they passed out the tickets. And so they called the first ticket and we looked anxiously, and it wasn't us. It was another woman. This woman whom I love her energy. She is so lovely to be around. She won, and guess what? She picked the very tray that I wanted. So I wasn't faint at that moment. I said there's still some trays left, although that was my favorite one. So we left, we did some things, and then we got back together and they called more raffle tickets. And unfortunately at that moment, I could not find my ticket. I lost my ticket. So I could no longer participate because my ticket was gone. And they called another person and she won the next prize. And wouldn't you know it, she picked the next best tray. And those were the two trays that I had wanted. And so they called more numbers and all the trays were gone. Then the blanket was gone and then the basket was gone. And so I said to myself and to the Lord, once the first tray was gone and then the second tray was gone, I said, I'm not going to paint my goat red. I'm going to trust in you, Lord. Those weren't meant for me. Those were meant for someone else. So later on during that day, some people, they get upset or jealous or envious of other people. I decided I'm not going to be any of those things. I approached her and I said, congratulations for winning the tray. And you know what she did? She said, do you want it? I said, that's your gift, you want it. She said, no, here, take it. My daughter uses these to put snacks on it. Here, why don't you take it? It's yours. I was so flabbergasted. I was shocked. I was surprised. I didn't know what to say. I kind of froze. And then she kept saying, here, it's yours. It's yours. I received it with joy and thanked her. And during the night, they had these cards that you can write out to people to encourage another woman. And so I took one of the cards and I thanked her. I said, this means more to me than you probably realize. Thank you for giving me your tray. May God bless you behind this. Came when we were sitting down for another session, and she's like, you got the tray? And then I pulled her aside and then I explained to her what had happened, and she's like, wow. Okay, so that's a beautiful story in and of itself, but it doesn't stop there. So the next day, when we were getting ready to leave the event, approaches me and she says, when you got up, see, Marilee had asked the women to stand up and express what God had shared with them during their alone time. And I said that God shared with me not to paint my goat red. And that he blessed me behind that. And so he shared with me that was her same testimony. That was the same thing God shared with her. So because of that, she's giving me her tray. She said, it's yours, take it. I said, but I tried to explain to her that had just given me hers, but there was no room for explanation. She's like, no, you don't understand. That was my testimony too. Here, it's yours. And she just placed it in my hands and walked away. And I was like, thank you. So I had an opportunity to go home with 2 trays and say, wow, God bless me double. And look at how good he is. But I remembered, and that we both prayed over it. And how wonderful is it to share your blessings with someone else? After we had breakfast, I pulled her aside and I said, yeah, I've got to share something with you. And then I shared with her what I did, and her eyes got big. She's like, what? Wow. And I said, I want to give you one of the trays. Would that be okay? And she's like, yeah, of course. So I gave her the bigger of the 2 trays. I gave her that one and I took the smaller one because that's the one I really wanted. I wanted the thin, small one, and I gave her the big, thicker one. And she was so happy to receive that. And how wonderful it is for us to share this red goat story that a plethora of the women there shared, and now and I are connected with these beautiful trays that God blessed us with. And it's kind of amazing when you think about it, because we prayed over them at first. We're like, Lord, let us win these prizes. And we laid hands on them and we didn't receive them at first. But God showed us through that to trust in him, have faith in him, and don't worry about it. I've got your gift. I know what I have for you, and it may or may not be what you see. But if you trust in me, I've got all the gifts, all the goodness, all the blessings that you want to walk into. And so I too want to retell and reshare this goat story and tell you, do not paint your goat red. Trust in the Lord and He will bring it to you in ways that will amaze, shock, and surprise you.